Hi, Pastor Don here. Thanks for clicking on the YouTube link to watch the sermon. We're taking requests all summer long. Just email your sermon request to passamo@roadrunner.com. God bless. Have a beautiful day. All right, now enough to talk about food for the body. Let's go to food for the soul in the second chapter of Revelation. I'm going to read through it, then come back and kind of work our way through it. All right? Revelation 2, starting in verse 8. To the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these are the words of him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful, even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes will not be hurt at all by the second death. Would you be willing to suffer, die, and be a martyr for Jesus? Your life was on the line. Would you choose Christ, even if it meant they were going to kill you? Now, you may think to yourself, that is a crazy way to start a sermon because I live in the United States of America, and that would never happen here. Are you thinking that? I don't have to worry about it. It would never happen here. What if you were faced with a choice? Either die for Christ, die for your faith, or simply renounce Him, and you were guaranteed a happy and prosperous life. How about something not as extreme? Let's face it, we do live in the United States of America. I don't know of anybody that's been put to death recently for their faith in Christ, or even not recently. How about, would you compromise your beliefs to be politically correct? To keep your job? To not be ostracized or teased? I think that we fool ourselves when we say, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes to get along at school. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get along at work. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get along in my family. If I have to compromise a few things, that's all right. But if I ever have to die for Jesus, I could do it. To me, that's kind of like me saying, you know what? Come over to my house, my backyard. We're going to take football. We're going to throw it around. You know what? I don't really want to throw the football around, but if I ever get called on by the Steelers to play, I could do it. If you can't do the simple things, have somebody tease you for being a Christian, what makes you think you could ever make a decision to die for Him? Of the 7 churches that we're going to go over, started last week and in the coming weeks, only Smyrna and Philadelphia were criticized. And they're the only 2 that were also experiencing suffering and trial. Maybe that helps us get our priorities straight. I don't know. Little background on Smyrna, prettiest city in all of Asia. It was called the ornament, the crown, the flower of Asia. In fact, the streets were laid out and the buildings were placed to make it look like a crown. It was called the Crown of Smyrna. There was a temple there to the Emperor Tiberius, and worship of the emperor was compulsory. When I say compulsory, well, I guess what I mean is you actually did have a choice. The other choice was to let them kill you. So you did have a choice. Otherwise, it was compulsory. If you wanted to stay alive, you worshiped the emperor. Once a year, every Roman citizen had to burn incense to Caesar and say the words, "Caesar is Lord," and then they received a certificate of compliance. And they were allowed to stay alive for another year. There was one group that was exempt from this, and that was the Jews. And it was for this reason. They kind of viewed the Jewish religion as being something ancient. They only had belief in one God. And so since Jesus was a Jew, the first Christians kind of weren't bothered. They just lumped them in together with the Jews, and there were no problems until 70 AD, when the temple was destroyed. The Jews distinguished themselves from the Christians. They slandered them. They made up lies about them. They accused them of subversion. There was one accusation, though, that was true. They say Jesus is Lord, not Caesar. And so the Christians began to be persecuted. You see, not saying Caesar was Lord was equal to being disloyal to the government. They were accused of subversion. And so the Christians were persecuted more and more and more. They started to confiscate their property. They would loot their homes and their businesses. They came into work became a hostile environment. Many of them were living in poverty. They couldn't keep their jobs. Nothing like that could happen in America, could it? Well, let me tell you one story. A guy by the name of Trevor Keysor, fired from the Home Depot. And what was his crime? He wore a button that said "One Nation Under God" on his Home Depot apron when he was at work. This went on for a year, no problem. But of course, what happened? One person complained. Home Depot's statement was this: expressing such personal beliefs is simply not allowed. He was told to take it off or be fired. In his mind, he is denying his Lord. If he stops wearing it, lost his job. Now, the same Home Depot had many employees wearing all kinds of buttons on their aprons promoting homosexuality, gay pride month, things like that. And they had many complaints from customers. I don't want this in my face. Please get rid of this. Home Depot statement: homosexual employees will not be prohibited in any way when it comes to what they do and wear. Now, here's the thing. Home Depot's a company. They can do whatever they want to do. We live in America. They're a company. They can make their employees all wear pink hats if they want to. Who cares? My point is, the discrimination and the persecution was against the Christian. I guarantee you, if somebody was wearing a Praise Allah button, it wouldn't matter how many complaints came in. Right? It was the Christian who was targeted. So can stuff like this happen in America? We're not being killed yet, but things are beginning. The Christians in Smyrna were paying a very heavy penalty for following Jesus. Materially, they were poor. Financially, they were poor. But Jesus tells them, look, spiritually, you guys are rich. In fact, on Saturday, February 23rd, 155 AD, Polycarp, a bishop of Smyrna, during the public games, a cry came up from the crowd: "Away with the atheist! Find Polycarp!" Now, right away you're going, wait a minute, he's a Christian, he's not an atheist, but in their way of thinking, if you did not have an idol in your house of your God, you were an atheist. Well, Christians don't have idols, right? So he was considered an atheist. And they went looking for him. They found him. And the soldiers that found him actually knew him. They didn't want him to be killed. And so they said to him, look, we don't want to take you away. We know what's going to happen to you. Just say Caesar is Lord. No. In fact, Polycarp said this: I know you guys, you are my friends. Will you give me 1 hour to pray? I'll have people here fix you something to eat. So the soldier sat down, had a meal. Polycarp went off by himself. He prayed for an hour, and then they took him. All along the way, just say Caesar is Lord, please, it'll save your life. His response was this: for 86 years I have served him. He has done me no wrong. How can I blaspheme the king who saved me? They told him, they're going to burn you at the stake. His response: you threaten me with fire that burns for a time and is quickly quenched. You do not know the fire which awaits the wicked in the judgment to come and the everlasting punishment. The crowds began to bring bundles of sticks. This was on a Saturday. The Jews broke their Sabbath to carry sticks and bring them to burn him. They were going to tie him to the stake, and at his request they didn't. He said, I don't want people to see me dying, bound here as if I'm here against my will. Don't tie my hands. I promise I won't run away. I want everyone to see I am dying willingly for my Lord. And so they burned him at the stake. This wasn't available to him right then, but I want to say it to you. Romans 8:18. The sufferings of this present time are not worth to be compared with the glory that is revealed to us. Since the Jews of Smyrna persecuted and slandered the Christians, since they rejected Jesus as the Messiah, that's how we end up with verse 9. Look at verse 9. I know your afflictions and your poverty, your rich. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but the synagogue of Satan. They proved that they weren't God's people. God is saying the Jews are no longer in the synagogue. In other words, the Lord is not, that is not the assembly of the Lord anymore. It's now the synagogue of Satan. They have turned their backs on him. They prove they're not God's people. Now, there's often big debates. Is America a Christian nation? Some people say yes. Some people say no. Some people say America was founded on Christian principles. We have wandered away from that. Other people say, as long as there are Christians in America, it will be a Christian nation. But I've noticed some changes in my short 55 years of living, and about 35 years of actually paying attention to what's going on around me. It used to be a common thing when I was younger that you had prayer at commencements. Graduated from high school. Not anymore. Even if you're the valedictorian of the class, many schools you must turn in your speech for approval, and if you dare mention God, you're threatened with either remove that or you can't speak. Used to be baccalaureate was, you just had baccalaureate, it was like a worship service that you went to. A lot of schools have done away with that. When's the last time you saw on a school calendar Christmas or Easter vacation? What do we have now? Winter break and spring breaks, right? It's okay to glorify Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, but don't you dare mention Jesus. And now one of the latest efforts is to do away with dates BC and AD, before Christ and after death, what our calendar is based on. Now we're supposed to say before the Common Era and after the Common Era, using the same dates, but leaving Jesus out of it. Think of the last time you saw a TV show or a movie where a Christian was portrayed in a positive light. It wasn't made by a Christian organization. How do Christians usually look? Morons, crazy people, intolerant. Now, some of you might not consider this a frontal attack. We could debate that. But you, I think, would at least agree it's an erosion. Verse 10 warns us of what is coming. Do not be afraid of what you're about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you. You will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life. Now, just so you know, the 10 days mentioned there, that's kind of like an idiom back then that would just mean for a while. It doesn't necessarily mean 10 exact days. Okay? One thing you need to know is when you were in a Roman prison, you did not go there and wait for your trial. You went there and waited for death. Okay? Look at verse 11. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes will not be hurt at all by the second death. I heard a little goodie a while back. I want to say to you, I imagine most of you probably heard it. If you are born once, you will die twice. If you are born twice, you will die once. This is the meaning. Obviously, we've all been physically born. If you are born again, the way Jesus described to Nicodemus, you repent of your sins, you receive forgiveness, Christ comes into your life, you are born again. You're only going to die once. This body's going to die, but you are going to live forever in eternity. If you are only born once, just physical, and never born again through Christ, you're going to die twice physically, and you're going to die, according to the Bible, over and over again in hell. Matthew 10:28. Do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. I realized I might date myself. Back when I was in high school, it was popular, a book going around written by Corrie ten Boom. How many of you have ever heard of Corrie ten Boom? Okay, see, you're dating yourself. Okay? After surviving the Holocaust, Corrie ten Boom was a Jew, okay, who came to Christ. But after surviving the Holocaust, she was with some other Christians, and they were meeting together to basically have church service in somebody's house, and they knew that they had to hide to do it. And one day, the doors busted open, and the soldiers came in with the guns, and they said, "All right, you Christians, we're going to give you 5 minutes. Everybody who renounces Christ, you will save your life. We're going to give you 5 minutes to leave." So one by one, a few of them got up and they left. The soldiers went, they locked the doors, they turned around, they came back, they put their guns down, and they said, "We're Christians too. But we didn't want to worship with any posers and fakers. We wanted to worship with people who were willing to give their lives for Jesus." Now again, we live in the United States of America, and I don't see this happening soon. But what if somebody came in the back door with guns and said, "I'm going to give you 5 minutes. You want to save your life? You can leave. All you have to do is renounce Christ, you can live. Everybody else is going to be shot." What would you do? Every year, in the world that we live in today, about 200,000 people are killed because they're Christians. This is particularly bad in Indonesia, where if you don't convert to Islam, they just kill you. It's not in America yet. Here's what I think. I think it's every single one of us. We're asked the question today, would you die for Jesus? We either right away say yes, or we say, I really want to say yes. But test yourself this way. When you're threatened with somebody teasing you at school or at work because you're a Christian, what's your response? Well, no, I just go to church, I'm not really. In your family, you're the only one. Do you just, all right, I'm going to keep Jesus on the down low, not going to say anything, anybody calling me names? If you can't bear a little rejection, a little teasing, a little bit being ostracized, you'll never die for him if it comes to it. you won't be prepared to do it. It's based, the ultimate reward is based upon choices that we make every day. Am I going to compromise? Or am I going to do the right thing? Now, I want to finish up with something from a personal example. When this happened back in the spring, I told Martha Mercereau, who I will identify in a minute, I told her this is going to make a great sermon illustration sometime, and I'm going to use it someday. Today's the day. I've been on blood pressure medicine for a while, small dose, but every time the prescription runs out every 6 months, the doctor holds it hostage and makes me go get blood work done before they renew it. And you probably have a doctor like that. So I went and got that done, and I have to go in and listen to them tell me how bad I am. And, as you can tell, I've never had a good attitude about this. Well, this past spring, I did that, and it was actually a physician's assistant by the name of Jillian. She came into the exam room, and she pulled out a piece of paper, and she looked at me, and she said, "So I guess we'll start you on the insulin pills." I said, "What?" And she said, "Nobody called you about your blood work?" "No." Okay, so some of you will know what this means, some of you won't. My triglycerides were over 1,000. I think that was the nurse that went, right? Okay. My AC1 blood thing or whatever was too high, whatever. Anyway, all the numbers were bad. The good, bad cholesterol's up, the good cholesterol's bad. Okay. And I said, "Listen, I don't want to take any more pills. Has to be what else can we do?" Well, she said, "Do two things for me. Number one, I want you to become more active, and number two, I want you to go visit a nutritionist." I'll give you her name, Martha. So Mary and I went and visited the nutritionist in her home, very nice lady. Sat down. Oh, they also gave me a thing to do my fingers, check your blood sugar. So she taught me how to use that, and went through all kinds of things, and she said, "Dawn, if you'll do what I tell you to do, I believe that all these numbers are going to become normal, and you're not going to have to prick your finger anymore, and you're just not going to have to worry about it. I don't think you're really diabetic. You're just eating all the wrong stuff, and you're too fat." She said, "First, I need to know two things from you. If you do what I tell you, you're going to lose weight. Everything's going to come fine. What's your goal weight? What would you like?" I said, "Well, I want to get back to my original weight." She said, "Well, you mean when you got married, when you graduated from high school?" What? I said, "No, my original weight, 6 pounds, 8 ounces." She said, "I've never had anybody say that before." She said, "Okay, realistically," I said, "You know what? If I was under 200 pounds, I'd be happy. I weighed 175 when we got married. If I get under 200, I'd be happy." Okay. She said, "What's your motivation?" And if you've ever seen the inside of my wallet, I carry a bunch of pictures of Ashley. So I started laying them out on the table like a deck of cards. And she went, "Is this all the same little girl?" And I said, "Yes, it is." I said, "This is my only granddaughter, and here's my motivation. I want to do her wedding, and I want to baptize at least her first child." Put all that away. She said, "You are going to be a success. I can tell." I said, "I even brought the chief cook with me, so she can hear everything you're about to say." Okay, now I'm going to pass over a lot of other stuff, but I'm going to tell you this. I have done what she has said. The results are obvious. But every day, I've got to make hard choices. If anybody ever tells you that carbohydrates are not addictive, they lie. Okay? One of the things that she said was, "Ed, I'm not going to tell you there's anything you can eat. You can eat whatever you want, but you've got to eat when I tell you and in the portions I tell you." I started checking my blood sugar, blah, 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 blah. I don't have to do that. I went back for the 3-month checkup. At that time, I think I lost about 30 pounds. And all the numbers were normal. Everything was normal. But every single day, I have to decide that I'm going to do the right things to stay alive. I have a goal. The reward is going to be, do you actually take some guy, I don't know who he is, but I'm sure he's not good enough for you. Same thing I did at my daughter's wedding. Every day serving Christ involves decisions. They're not always easy, and some of the things you've been doing have been addictive. They're hard to give up. But I don't worry about what I'm going to do tomorrow or the next day. I worry about what I'm doing today. I'm following a few simple rules. One of the rules that I love to follow, that Martha told me, you must eat every 3 hours. Thank you. Yes, I will. But it's what I eat. There are some rules about being a Christian. But you know what? They're all for our good. They're all for our good. And the reward, ultimately, obviously, is heaven. But you know what? There's some things to enjoy now. I got clothes I've been holding in the closet saying, someday, well, guess what? The someday came. I could wear them again. There's some reward right now, but I've got one off in the future. There's rewards right now for being a Christian, but the best one's off in the future. If you overcome. Let's pray. Lord, I've never done anything in my life worth doing and had it be easy. Nothing. Way back when I learned to play guitar, my fingertips hurt like crazy on those strings. And my brother used to tell me, keep doing it till you get the calluses and it won't hurt anymore. I fell down learning to ride my bicycle. Everything I've ever done worth doing has been hard in some way. Serving you is not always easy. It's going to be hard. But you can help us to overcome. And I thank you for that in Christ's name.